Okay.
And it's going.
Sweet.
Hey, Nick, good to see you.
Hey, everybody, likewise.
Pull up the agenda. Share my screen. All right. Well, so far we don't have too many folks on the call from usual pastimes, but it has been a while. It's been almost like 6 months, I think, since our last meeting right now.
Yeah.
So, um,
So yeah, we shifted to a quarterly schedule and then to a semi-annual schedule.
yep.
So I think that I just decided let's go ahead with this and see where we get. If we just have a small number of people, Tom Novotny did reach out and let me know that he is going to join a little bit late. So
Okay.
I know that he has some very important updates to share related to
Cool.
the plastics treaty. So it would be great to get that update.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll just check in with whoever's here today and I'm sure in future meetings some other folks will come too. Eamon's usually pretty active with this group also, so I see his pilot is here, but I don't know
Yeah,
what he's up to today.
it's great that he sends his AI in its place if he can't be there.
Yeah. Cool. So we have an agenda here. Um, Trashy updates, and there was a specific item we wanted to tackle with from Julian that Tony's going to share. And then we have some projects we want to specifically highlight and talk about. And I don't know, we can just go around and do a popcorn. Hannah, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So my main updates are that we submitted the manuscript and it's almost final stages of review. I think one of the reviewers just has a couple things left to check off. And then we also started a new project with Hawaii Pacific University where we're creating a database diagram for marine debris around the different islands. So those are my main two projects right now.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that manuscript is about?
Yeah, so we published it on the One for All portal. So all of the tools that we presented during our workshop, so the data validator, data visualization, and the microplastic image explorer. Originally, we were just going to focus on the data validator, but we thought it was important to incorporate the other two tools so that we can get all of that peer reviewed.
Uh, Thank you.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I wanted to say, sorry to cut you guys off. You're
yeah.
probably at low attendance because the information Shelly had me send out to like a large list of people had a different Zoom information. I just put it in the chat. I don't know if you want to jump and see if there's a ton of people over there waiting, but it
Uh,
was not the information that Tony shared this just before the meeting started. It was a different Zoom link and a different passcode. And,
Oh,
huh.
wow.
it's in the chat, the information, but that's what Shelly had me send out earlier this week to several people, and that was shared with like the academic folks. So
Huh.
that could be why there's only 6 people here.
Yeah, that would explain it. Yeah, I think that was from some years ago. I don't know how to reach that, but I'm not sure I could be in two Zoom meetings at once and I'm the host, but let me,
I
uh,
can try to jump out and see, but yeah.
okay. I'm gonna make Win co-host. Because I would imagine I need to be, I'm the host for this other thing because I've always been.
Hmm.
So let me, I'm gonna jump off this meeting and be right back.
Okay.
Okay. So things should be seamless with you as host with.
All right. Jana, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a really long time.
Yeah, I feel like it's been about maybe a year or something.
Yeah, so I went on maternity leave around like May or April last year. And then I don't
Congrats.
think we've had or maybe I don't know if we've had a meeting since I've come back. I came back in like October.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there was we switched over to like quarterly meetings, and so that may be part of the um, part of the lack of hanging out. But good to
Yeah,
see
all
you
good.
again.
Good
Yeah.
to see everyone again too.
And yeah, really happy to hear that you're had it brought a human into this world. That's
I know, she's a year old now, so time is flying by so fast.
yeah, I hear it does. Tony, was there anybody in that?
I don't know. It's not my link. It's actually, I think it was just a mistake by Shelley because it said
Oh,
Southern
okay.
California Academy of Sciences.
Oh, interesting.
That's her thing. And so it said
Yeah.
waiting for the Southern California Academy of Sciences to start the meeting.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I feel like people will figure it out because they're all like in the calendar invite too, so
Yeah.
um should be okay. Well, we can send out after this meeting, we can send out like a recap for people and just let people know that
Yeah.
we'll have the
Yeah,
next.
we have this recording and we'll have a summary. So yeah, we
Yeah.
can circulate it.
Cool. Okay, so Hannah, thanks for your updates. You had the apps that you've developed, and you were talking about the Hawaii Pacific University project to you want to talk about that any more detail?
Yeah, so currently we're creating a Sankey plot to represent the marine debris and the trash around the island. So we have a couple different data sets from members throughout the islands, and we're just developing a Sankey plot to represent the mass detected, mass removed of trash, and then specific marine debris as well.
Yeah, basically like aggregating data from a variety of data sources in Hawaii, and trying to make sense of what's going on with trash there. Thank you. Okay. Jana, do you want to go?
Sure. I mean, I'm just kind of jumping back into the scene here, so I don't have any particular updates. And yeah, it's great to see everyone. I took a break around April, came back in October, and don't know if we've had a meeting since then. So yeah, excited to jump back in and see where y'all are at. And nice to meet you, Hannah. I know we haven't met yet. I work for Michael Baker International, and I do a lot of trash compliance for municipalities and for agencies, and yeah, on a statewide level and kind of a local level too.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm working at the Moore Institute as a data scientist.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Jana, do you have any current trash projects that you're working on?
I do assist Caltrans with their trash compliance in various different aspects of it. So yeah, that's currently what we're doing to help with headquarters DEA out in Sacramento. They cover all the districts, but I also particularly help out with District 4, which is in the Bay Area as well. So
Okay, sweet. Yeah, it's been a while since we've connected with Caltrans. I don't know if Walter is still around.
Walter is still around. He's more in Clean California, and then he's in data as well. So yeah, but I'm happy to send out this information for the next
Yeah.
quarterly meeting to Caltrans folks as well. They're busy prepping. I actually don't know what meeting they have at 2 p.m., but we've been getting requests over there. So
Okay,
But yeah,
cool. Yeah.
I'll definitely send out the meeting information for the next one that comes out to see if anyone wants to join.
Are you working on Caltrans's from Clean California? Like, I'm sure they're gathering a ton of data. Are you working on that, like analyzing that, or?
That would be more of a Walter question for
okay.
that. I more assist with their trash compliance with their statewide permit and also their trash specific requirements in Regional Board 2.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so both on like a data and a strategy level, kind of we assist with what's needed.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And so we've been doing it for like, I want to say over 20 years. So if you have questions about that, it would help happy to assist you in linking you to Caltrans as well.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you. Sweet.
So what's going on with Eamon?
I don't think he's here. I think he's
No, I was hoping that maybe the autopilot would respond.
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
Did the autopilot go off of mute? No.
No.
Shoot. Okay, well, we're just like probably a couple months from that.
Yeah, true. It just gives us like his entire agenda of like what he's doing today.
Yeah. It's like getting a massage at noon, coffee break at 12:30. Yeah.
Maybe it runs through his schedule and what he's actually in.
Yeah. He's currently triple booked.
Yeah.
Currently talking in this meeting.
Yeah.
I'll pass it to you, Tony.
Thank you. So yeah, since it's been 6 months since we've gathered, and a lot has happened in the world of trash, and specifically plastics focused trash. So some things to highlight. You'll notice that under the agenda document, there are a couple projects that I listed there, including the microplastics data portal, which is in alignment with what Hannah was sharing. But there's also the plastics monitoring strategy and implementation plan. This is a project that I'm co-leading with Dr. Diana Lin of SFEI, with funding and leadership from the California Ocean Protection Council. And what it's designed to do is develop a plan for plastics monitoring, both macro and micro, across the state, leveraging a number of ongoing efforts, and then also articulating a plan for enhancing those efforts, either by coalescing them together across the state or by augmenting them. So this is the presumption with this with the strategy is that there will be additional funding coming in to support additional efforts. So it's not an unfunded mandate, but a funded mandate where plastic producers would need to put into a fund that would help for augmenting the current monitoring. Some of the challenges associated with this are that there's a lot of trash monitoring happening, but some of it is qualitative, not speciating things by different types. So where it's a general kind of trash level, it isn't necessarily concerned with what is the amount of plastic in that trash stream. So that's a challenge in terms of leveraging existing monitoring. And so we'll be sharing a lot of those things coming out of the effort, but we're not doing it alone. So we are pulling together a SAG, a state advisory group, where a number of different state agencies, including the water quality, the State Water Resources Control Board, and Nick Martirano, who's in this meeting now, are helping to inform the monitoring questions and concerns at that state level, so that the monitoring that would come into effect would align with those monitoring questions and help to address them. So in good practice of trying to make sure that we're aiming to address the right questions, we're consulting that state advisory group. we're also we're now assembling a TAC of technical advisors that would help to speak to the monitoring methods and also help to make clear the nature of the different monitoring efforts happening across the state. So that TAC is being assembled and we'll be meeting soon next month. There's also tribal consultations happening, and during the early part of this year, we had community engagement, so reaching out to broader community about their concerns. So that is moving forward with a goal of having a strategy and plan available in draft form by the end of the calendar year, wrapping things up in the following year. That's that. If Tom Novotny were here, I would invite him to talk about the plastics treaty, but I'm going to skip down to the item just below that, the trash capture device assessments. So this is a SEEK grant funded effort led by the city of Santa Barbara in Southern California. But the scope of this work extends to the Bay Area, and that's why SFEI is involved. We've been working with the Moore Institute, WINS organization, as represented by Shelley Moore, and also Ted Von Bittner, who are helping to outfit the Southern California component of this trash capture device assessment. What we're seeking to do is to answer the question, are trash capture devices net sinks for microplastic, or are they net generators for microplastic? So if macroplastic goes into trash capture devices, knowing that they are not designed to capture microplastics, do microplastics eventually kind of make their way out of these devices, or does the combination of trash and organic matter that are often found in these devices, does that serve as an additional filter that ends up trapping microplastics in the end? The import of this is that these devices are not designed around microplastics, but it's important to understand their effect in either capturing or generating microplastics, since microplastics is rising as a concern, particularly as it makes its way into receiving waters. So what results from this assessment might have an effect in how these devices are maintained, what their maintenance cycles might be, or what designs are more or less effective in capturing microplastics. So this is one part of a broader project that also embraces things like street sweepers to see how effective street sweepers are in capturing microplastics. Some of you may know that street sweepers are often sweeping up dust, which may be microplastic in nature. So that is also an ongoing project. And so we'll wait to hear back from Tom about that. I'll also share with you that I'm advising. So if Chris Summers were here, he would be quick to raise his hand and share an update on a BAMSC led project in the San Francisco Bay Area. So BAMSC, which is the kind of heir apparent to BASMA, has been leading a water quality improvement fund project to assess the effectiveness of outfalls and receiving waters monitoring in Bay Area creeks and rivers. So they're doing a combination of the outfall monitoring, which consists mostly of nets that trap the trash that comes out of stormwater outfalls, as well as using the so-called box method of trawling off of bridges, so named after Carolyn Box. And so the box trawl allows you to capture a certain volume of water and assess how much trash is present in that water column. So these two methods, one centering on outfalls and the other on receiving waters and the creeks, together will assess the effectiveness of trash capture devices in a given drainage management area. So it's been fascinating for me at serving on the TAC for this project, because they've gone through a very thorough process of identifying suitable sites for monitoring, and some of those are limited by geographic concerns, economic, the types of storm capture devices, and then other things like permitting. Permitting is a big obstacle, where they are often faced with Fish and Wildlife concerns that they could have bycatch of sensitive species, and also that the nets that are centered around the stormwater outfalls might become submerged, and so and doing any kind of modifications to certain areas can produce concerns from Fish and Wildlife. So they have to kind of put special devices and lay some concrete to hold the nets, and the nets have to be designed to break free after a certain amount of trash gathers to avoid backup. So yeah, a lot of things going on, really complicated, and it's fascinating to see a project like that managed through all those challenges. But they are making progress, and we can share some results when those results are ready. Those are my trashy updates. I did pose some questions that are kind of outside the trashy updates. I don't know if Nick, you're still there, and if you have any trashy updates you would like to share.
Hey, I'm here. No, I don't have anything to add. You mentioned the plastics subcommittee and providing feedback to you all in OPC, which is great. And I think we're still working through going through what you provided back, but it looked better to me. So I think that was the only update we've had at the water board at this point.
Great. Well, thank you, Nick, so much for your leadership on kind of stewarding the water board through this process of developing that strategy.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, really appreciate that. So I did pose a kind of important, what I think is an important question below the ongoing projects to highlight. I guess before we do the question, let me go back up to the agenda, since we've had all of our trashy updates. I guess, Wynn, did you do your trashy updates?
I could go.
Okay, why don't you do yours first, and then we'll continue on.
Okay, yeah. Really cool to hear about all the projects you have going on right now too, and it's great that we continue to collaborate on all of these things. I mean, we did the data portal together, and I'm glad that we're finally rounding the bend on that. Big update on that. So the microplastic data portal, Hannah is publishing that. I think like in terms of a lot of these projects, we get to the end and like in terms of scientific advancement, we're like cutting edge. In terms of like actually applying the thing, we're behind. And we need to figure out how to like bridge that gap. And that's been kind of a reoccurring theme, I think, for the data people here is like we can create whatever these policymakers and managers can imagine. But whether or not they end up using it is another thing. So like the number one thing that we ran into with the data portal already is like, it's basically just for the Moore Institute, because getting accredited to do microplastic analysis, which is what the tool was designed for, is really hard. And so there's only one other group that is getting accredited currently. So there will be two groups providing data to the data portal for microplastic accredited labs that are accredited to monitor drinking water. Now, with that said, we're now thinking about like, because the big vision was that this would be much larger scale than that. I mean, we actually designed this so that it would be super high performance, like double backed up, triple backed up, all sorts of quality checks being used in other applications. And so now we're working a lot on trying to figure out what those other use cases are. And we've already had some collaborators, mainly from the research community, reach out saying, I would like to submit data to the data portal. I'm not going to be an accredited lab. So we have developed a system for that too. And I think moving forward, whoa, Tony, you just changed into another person. What the heck? What was that?
Sorry about that. Sorry. Sometimes my magic, it just kind of comes out without me thinking much about it. I had a fleeting thought and no, I'm listening. Sorry. Please continue.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. So, so anyways, yeah, so the microplastic data portal now we're like trying to figure out how it can be used by the general research community because I think that application will be a lot more, in line with the vision that we had from the beginning. So the main big thing that I have to share trash wise is that we published a study on it's in Science Advances, which I'm very grateful that we were able to publish in this high of a journal. I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually going to accept it. This is awesome. Because this study is it was really well done. It's using brand audit data from around the world, and we have co-authors from a bunch of different research groups around the world too. And basically, what we found is that there is a one-to-one relationship between plastic production and plastic pollution.
Wow.
Individual companies. And that is crazy. It actually when we found this result, I had a panic attack because this is a scary reality. What it suggests is that you cannot tackle plastic pollution without tackling plastic production. Like we will not see big gains in plastic pollution without decreasing production, and decreasing production is probably the hardest thing to do. Nobody wants to change the status quo. People do not want to stop buying things that are conveniently wrapped in plastic. And so I like tried to go to the bar and like drink myself out of this, but it didn't work. So I published this paper instead.
Yeah.
And of course, because this reality is so strong, like literally a one-to-one relationship, the plastic industry is quite upset about this. They are starting to push back. I've already gotten some hate blogs from the plastic producers. It's being used in court cases too. Already, it's only published like 2 months ago, and it's already being used in legal battles. So a lot is heating up here. I think there's a lot more research that we could do in this realm. I think even though the plastic industry is kind of upset that we've published this reality, I think eventually they'll warm up to it and see it as an opportunity for them to, see how well they're improving their impact on the environment. Can we get this line to go down over time? Can we see, Coca-Cola as currently the #1 polluter? Can we see them move down in the list? If they say that they have these really ambitious goals to change their impact,
Yeah.
we should be able to see that in the data in the future. So
Is Philip Morris listed in this? Did you look at cigarette butts?
we did, yep. They're not, so the only companies that are on this plot are the ones that have shared their mass productions.
Okay, okay.
So we only had like 30 different companies for that data, but Philip Morris is actually number 5 in the total list. So this is percent of plastic pollution by company, and they're ranked. So Coca-Cola is on
Altria.
top, and Altria is also Philip Morris.
Yeah.
Philip Morris is one of the ones that's pushing back extremely hard. They're trying to poke holes in the study as much as they can because they think it's a straw man, but really it's a freaking brick house, brick fortress, really.
Yeah.
We like knew that this was gonna happen, and so I've like done so much statistical so many advanced statistics to make sure that these findings are really airtight.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
yeah. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, what you see in this particular visualization is that it's not logarithmic. So the other one is logarithmic. So it's like following a line. This one is a curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because when you share logarithmic visualizations with the public, they don't understand the massive
Right.
difference between,
Yeah, yeah.
being on that line. So
Yeah.
it's just, you can see here how much the Coca-Cola company is like out there,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Have you heard from Coke specifically?
No. We have heard from Nestle and Shannon, I think. I don't know. They're all like kind of wishy-washy on their positions. Like some of them are like, "Oh yeah, like we acknowledge that this is a reality and we're doing something about it." And then they'll like in the same, thread be like, "Oh, and like we don't like this about the study or we don't like that about the study." So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll see.
So where was your geographical kind of like constraints? Were you looking at like worldwide? It looks
Yeah.
like the scope is worldwide. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll show you where the data points were. So,
Wow.
we had 1,500 data points spread across the world. Um, and they are a little bit skewed by country. So you have like Indonesia was the number one, followed by the US, Tanzania, Thailand. Um, we don't think that this is necessarily like a problem for the analysis. We still just averaged all of the observations because we think this is globally representative of plastic pollution sources of major countries that are having pollution issues. Um, but there are some gaps. So you can't scale this down very easily to like country level or city level or something like that. We would need more data.
Yeah, yeah. This is magnificent. I think it's so great that you're bold with this analysis and are able to make such a big splash. It's tremendous. So
Thanks.
I applaud, I applaud your initiative and going out there to do this. This is just incredible.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I would want, as a separate thing, not as any, it's not a criticism of what you're doing here, but it would be interesting, I think, to address at a smaller scale how different mitigation measures might be effective in moving the needle one way or the other. Because
Absolutely.
what you come away with from a study of this scale is that, as you pointed out, production follows the pollution, or pollution follows the production rather.
Right.
And it would be interesting to see to what extent, if any, the efforts to capture trash, education or training methods or other things that are supposed to have an effect on trash releases are doing anything to change that picture. And you may not see it on a global scale because they haven't been deployed on a global scale, but if you were to zoom in on a particular community or whatnot,
Right.
then maybe you're seeing a dent, and it would be good to know what is that dent? Like, is it a 10% reduction, 100% reduction, or somewhere in between?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. Definitely something we'd like to follow up with in future studies. I think it's the challenging thing. So like right now we have up to 100 events in a country. And so I really think we probably want a lot more surveys in a country to even downscale to the country. And then
Yeah.
if you wanted like state level, you would want, maybe on the order of 1,000 surveys or something like that to really get like a good representative data set. So yeah, but we are thinking about this a lot, and I think as these continue, like every year they do another 300 surveys. So in the future, we should be able to downscale and really look at some of those things. Also with the companies too, I'd like to see like the companies have made promises on like plastic reduction, and I'd like to see if some of the variability in here is due to that. Right now, the majority of the variability is due to the different sectors. So you have like food and beverage sector is skewed higher than household and retail sector, which that already says something about reuse. Basically, like
Yeah.
if you have products that are reusable, you're probably an order of magnitude less impact on the environment.
Yeah.
So I think that is pretty clear, but yeah, there's probably other things that are causing like some of this variability in here. But this one, this was crazy. Like if you look at these points here, like look at how straight that line is for these
Yeah.
purple points in here in the top sector. That's kind of ridiculous. And these data sets are independently related. Like the data set here was collected by global volunteers, and the data set here is being volunteered by the corporations themselves.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the trend is that tight.
That
It's
is
pretty crazy.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know, that it's just like you're asking, you know, someone to bring their data from here and
I
others
know.
bring it together and it just fits right into the puzzle.
Yeah, I was really blown away by this.
I wonder what you have to say about the real clear outliers like McCormick and Company and McCain, like what those are, why those are falling so far below the line.
I think that McCormick and Company is actually a highly reusable product. So like they make spices.
Right.
And
Oh, it's the little, yeah, McCormick Spice.
yeah.
Okay.
So they like the lifetime of a spice jar is super long. Like
Yeah.
it's not like a soda bottle where you just throw it back and like the next day it's gone. People hold on to these things for years.
Yeah.
McCain Foods, I think this is a grocery store, if I'm not mistaken. Some of these were kind of hard to classify, like whether it should be in food or beverage or household and retail. And so yeah, but I'm pretty sure McCain Foods is a grocery store, and that it is mainly it just like doesn't have clear branding associated with all of their products. So even though they're like relatively produce a lot of mass, they also they're less represented. Um,
So maybe one explanation as to why they fall below the line is not so much that they are that they're following a different practice of production or different practice of recycling, but that their product is closer to a household good than a food and beverage. Like a
yeah,
spice jar is not something that you're buying and then opening and using and then
yeah,
in a fast cycle, the way that most food and beverage doesn't sit around for 2 years.
right, right.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's mainly potatoes, like French fries, kind of potato.
What is?
Oh,
McCain.
McCain.
McCain is
Oh,
okay.
plastic potatoes?
Literally like French fries.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
So
other thing that could explain anomalies is that the brand is not as identifiable.
yeah.
So it could be that McCain goods just don't stamp it the same way as a Coca-Cola bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some companies who are basically they have reported their mass that they produce, but they are not, they have zero pollution that we've found. And the main reason for that, I think, is the branding. It's like these are like clothing companies. Clothing companies often, unless you're like Nike, you're not putting your brand specifically on everything. And so, but also they're very highly reusable too. So if you have something like clothes that are super highly reusable, maybe we're not going to find it in the environment that much.
Wow. Well, This is such a great trashy update, Win. Congratulations on this.
Thanks.
So many great trashy updates. I mean, I'm totally open when if you, I know that not, I mean, this is incredible, but I know that you're talking about just how to make tools usable, right, and practical. I
Yeah.
think from where I'm sitting, I'm more of like the compliance end of the end of it, like kind of how do agencies show their compliance and how do they track their compliance? And so if you
Yeah.
ever want to chat that, I'm always open to those kinds of conversations to maybe help bridge the gap between like, you know, research and what is being done on the regulatory side versus like how do you actually prove that you're in compliance, and like how do you actually use that to make a difference instead of just check the box for compliance. So
Right.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, in the trash world for the TMDLs, I've been thinking about that a lot because we do have a threshold now for the like, if you're below this amount exporting into the environment per year or something like that. I forget what it is. And I recently did an analysis of that number, and if you extrapolate that to the whole state of California, it's actually kind of a scary figure to be like to accept. It's like a lot of trash. I think it was on the order of like 10 pounds per person per year can be polluted into the environment. And that's what we've set as like an acceptable threshold. I think it's kind of high. I don't know.
I mean, you're onto something on like the producer end of it, right? I mean, for Caltrans, they don't even should theoretically not produce anything other than user, and then that goes to public education, but they're not getting any
Yeah.
credit for public education, right? So
Right.
what are their efforts going to focus on? Just something that they could show for compliance and not necessarily getting at the root of it, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
been one of their biggest things. Like, how come they can't get credit for efforts that are actually going to mitigate the real problem, right? So
Right. Right.
yeah, it's super
Yeah.
important to understand. I mean, yeah, total
Yeah.
maximum daily loads, where do that kind of, what is that based on, and at what point are those levels set, and how do they, you know, how do they determine those levels, and how do they show compliance with those levels? Kind of goes back to Tony's topic on
Yeah.
trash capture devices, right? It's like certain standards are based on you know, devices, but how effective are those devices over time, and how effective, and I think the biggest question is in the trash community, regulated community, is what does compliance look like if you're not on track one full trash capture system, right?
Right.
What does that equivalence mean? And I think that's just
Right.
been a challenge to understand,
Yeah.
and a challenge to implement, and a challenge to actually make a difference there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I know Caltrans recently released like a very large report on this topic too, and they did a whole study and everything like that. So, I mean, maybe it is time for the research community to get in on that conversation. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've talked to Nick about it a little bit too. So yeah, let's follow up about that. And
It looks like we have Tom Novotny on the line. Tom, can you
Yeah.
hear us? We have an agenda item for you to talk.
Yes.
An update on the plastics treaty.
Oh, good.
Anything else you
Thanks.
might have?
Yeah, the plastics treaty is moving along with an expert group in the intersessional period, which is I'll be participating in that mostly virtually. But the big discussion is relative to the interest of the group that I'm with, is the Stop Tobacco Pollution Alliance, is trying to get the cellulose acetate filter as one of the items that are listed as non-essential, widespread, harmful, and something that can be named in appendix, I think it's B2, as something that should be just eliminated up front outright. And that's the objective of the group that I'm working with. There's been some countries that have responded favorably to this, Canada, for instance, and Bangladesh, believe it or not, and Palau, and a few others that are going to, Palau especially is going to try to include this in a discussion later in it's going to be in Bangkok later this year with an expert group that I hope to be able to participate in, that will be considering these particular objects, these commercial products. So there's a lot of resistance, as you can imagine, from the countries that have investments in oil and petroleum products about just about everything, Russia especially, the
USA.
yeah, well, the USA too. You know, it's been interesting. What we tried to do with the USA delegation is actually to increase their focus on health as a background kind of argument to be made. HHS was included in the Department of Health and Human Services was included in the delegation from HHS or from the State Department for the last several efforts, and they've had listening sessions prior to the negotiating sessions. That was the last one was held in March, and it's been it's been a useful thing to at least bring up some of the health issues in those sessions, and something that at least there was an audience on. Beyond that, all I can say is that it's at least getting a little bit more attention. You know, when you bring up the plastics treated to people, it hasn't really gotten the public attention that I think it needs to. And maybe it's just because that there's not much faith in anything that will come of it. But I think it's an important discussion that will continue on, I know, for another at least one more negotiating session before they have a draft that can be at least considered by the parties that are participating in it.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks.
sharing that, Dr. Novotny.
Thanks a lot for your work on that. I know it's been really it's been like a roller coaster emotionally for the research community watching.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in the discussion specifically, but been watching everything and kind of like I've been optimistically hoping that something really positive will come out of it. And I know we've had some big setbacks. But I think in the long run, this will be the foundation for other things that are going to have a lot of teeth, even if this one doesn't.
Well, one of the things that's missing is a real clear understanding of the risk of the microplastics to the human health. And, you know, there's been studies now that have been published, for instance, that show that there's microplastics aggregating in lesions leading to cerebral vascular disease, you know, the clot that causes the strokes that, you know, plugs up the blood vessels. And so, yeah, that's interesting, but it's like a sort of an incidental finding more than a clear understanding. And so this is, I think, a major place where the research really has to, you know, focus on what is it that we can expect with this sort of invasion of microplastics into the human body, which we all know is there now. So, and that's something we don't know.
Yeah, and it's hard to study, and it's hard to extract these plastics and quantify them. I just reviewed a paper on one of the major human health studies that have come out, and all the reviewers were like, we have very little confidence in the results because of the techniques that were used. It's so early. We need like hundreds of these studies before we've shaken out the methods. It's so tricky to differentiate like plastics from a human cell even.
That's the thing. You know, in the tobacco world, there were certain criteria that were set up to say that when you have an exposure to this product, that there's a causal relationship. Maybe you guys are all familiar with this. You know, it has to first be biologically plausible. In the case of plastics, there's a lot of biologic plausibility, especially with the PFSAs, you know, the forever plastics. That it has to be the strength of association has to be very significant. It's not just a little bit of a risk, but significant that you can actually measure it. That it's consistent. That various types of studies all lead to the same place. And there's a dose response, so that if you have a little bit, it's not as much a risk as if you have a lot. And then if you take away the risk factor, there's a reversal of the outcomes. Those criteria were set during the Surgeon General's report and just prior to it in 1965 to really be able to define causality as an association for the risk factor. And that's as you point out, Wynn, it's very difficult to do given the kinds of studies we have so far, all essentially retrospective.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Tony, did you want to, before we head off, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, there are two things I want to cover very quickly, without without adequate time, I think. But first and foremost, let me circulate an invitation from Julian Fulton. Julian couldn't be here today, but his project is, this is the data portal that he's shared with us in the past. He's done a part 1 and part 2. And it's called, the actual title of it is Participatory Science Networks for a Trash-Free San Francisco Bay. And as you may recall from his presentations, he's leading a project to help reduce trash inputs to the San Francisco Bay through a combination of monitoring, cleanup, career training in underserved communities in support of the municipal regional permit for the San Francisco Bay. And he's associated with California State University, Sacramento, and he's leading this effort. I'm just passing on the message that he would like this work group to potentially serve as the TAC for his project. So he's inviting members of this work group to join a TAC, which seems like a appropriate use of resources. So that is something that I'm putting out there. We can put into the notes Julian's contact information should you wish to take him up on that offer. This recording will be circulated to the broader membership, and there was a mix-up in misdirecting people to different links, so maybe people who wanted to join today couldn't. They would, of course, be included on this invitation as well. So that's putting that out there. It sounds like people might be well suited to that effort. The other thing to share very quickly, I was just wondering, just posing the question about our kind of parent organization, the Trash Monitoring Work Group itself. It hasn't met in now maybe four years, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Just thinking that maybe we can consider it in hibernation or something, but there were people who were not part of this subcommittee that were part of that work group, or could also be associated with one of the other work groups, including the microplastics or the unhoused. I'm not sure exact. I think it was actually called the homeless subcommittee.
Right.
It could be important to make sure that people stay in the loop, because we're kind of in our own little, orbit over here.
Yeah.
And the bigger orbits might not know about us. So just wondering if maybe when I could ask you to talk to Shelley about it and see if she has any strong feelings. She's the chair after all. And she's been busy with a lot of things, including attending these other subcommittees. So we might just want to kind of revisit the structure that we have here and figure out what is the best way to make sure that the right people are in the loop.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And yeah, I'll definitely ask Shelley. She's away right now. She had an injury she's getting taken care of. So
okay. Sorry to hear that.
I think she wanted to be a part of this meeting, but I will follow up with her and ask. She keeps saying that she wants to do something with the trash monitoring work group, wants to have another meeting, but you're right, it has been several years since our last meeting. So yeah, maybe it makes sense to get all of the previous folks together and kind of make one group.
Yeah. So just it's kind of an open question. I didn't have an agenda behind it other than just making sure that we're not leaving people behind who may be waiting for the next
All right.
work
Yeah.
group meeting hasn't been scheduled. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, that's really all I wanted to cover. Wynn, I wonder if you have any other closing thoughts, or really anybody else wish to add anything?
There is a webinar right after this for the ocean litter strategy. I don't know if folks have been getting those emails, but I think there will be several different speakers. I'm going to be speaking at that about the plastic producers paper. So
Oh, that's great.
There's a microplastics monitoring playbook work group subcommittee tomorrow from 1 to 3. This is from the Water Quality Monitoring Council. Are any of you involved in that? I'm trying to get in on that one, I think.
I
Yeah,
think
maybe.
Shelley is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Shelley
just-
sent me that. Maybe I've got confused then. That's the one I thought was this one. So I
Oh,
think I got
right, yeah.
confused. Yeah.
I see Shelley's name there now, yeah. Okay.
Okay, and I see the comment from Nick that as the new web pages are relaunched, we could look at those and provide feedback, and we're happy to do that. Thanks, Nick, for drawing our attention to that. All right, so Nick, we'll be sending you the recording for this, and I think I'm behind on giving you the last recording as well, so we'll try and catch up with that.
That sounds good.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. If you have any ideas for the next agenda, please feel free to reach out to me or Wynn, and we'll make sure that it gets agendized.
Good to see everyone. Take care.
Good to see you too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right, goodbye.